Before we get started, let's introduce everyone on this meeting. I'm Sandy Brock. When I call your name, please confirm that you can hear me by verifying that you are present, starting with the commissioners. As Leah just mentioned, Alicia's not here. Jonathan.
I'm here and I can hear you.
Thank you. Betsy.
I'm here and I can hear you.
Patrick.
I'm here. Can hear you.
And then we'll move to staff. Leah.
Present.
And Jan.
I'm here.
And as far as speakers go is Norm Hill.
I'm here. I can hear you.
Great. All right. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order as extended on June 15th, 2021. With the governor signing of Senate Bill number 2475 superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law. Access information for the public has been provided at the town website. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If you are using a dial-in by telephone feature, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note that you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals per your cue. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will invite each commissioner by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. After commissioners have spoken, I will allow public comments to be spoken by participants. Participants must use the raise hand feature by clicking the hand icon on the bottom right of the Zoom menu bar to indicate they would like to speak. If you're using a dial-in by telephone feature, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute when you are called upon. Participants who raise their hands will be recognized one at a time by their name and then will be promoted to speak. Public comments will be followed by commission and applicant responses. Finally, whoops, I just threw myself off. Finally, each vote will be conducted by roll call vote. As a reminder, the commission is concerned with state and town wetland stormwater regulations. Concerns outside of this purview need to be addressed by appropriate boards. For example, a road condition must be addressed by select board. Traffic concerns must be addressed with the planning board. All right, so that's our opening statement. Coming quickly up to public hearing time. Is there anything that we should take care of now, Leah?
You can jump right into the lots on Upton Street if you want, because we don't have anything with a specific time tonight.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll start. So pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family houses at 179 and 183 Upton Street. And who is here to discuss that?
Good evening. This is Norman Hill. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
You got the floor.
Yes. Good evening. I'm a civil engineer on the land. Good evening, everyone. Glad to see you're all well. Forgive me if I'm a little crazy tonight. I've got 5 of my employees out with COVID, including my son. But anyway, these 2 lots are both proposing a single-family house, well, and septic system. When we last met, there was a question regarding the riverfront and the wetland flags, whether or not they were accurate. So we agreed to hire Arthur Allen, and he went out to the site and checked all of my flags. And he agreed with all the wetland flags, and he agreed with the riverfront flags that I had hung, but he hung 2 additional riverfront flags further out downstream. So I then sent my surveyors out, and they located the location of those 2 flags. And then we've revised the 2 plans to show Arthur Allen's riverfront flags in his riverfront areas. The big change is that this riverfront now overlaps about 2/3 of the septic system that's proposed on lot 183. We had already shown it on 179, but now it also exists on 183. So the plans have been revised. I believe all of the fees have been paid and Arthur Allen's bill has been paid. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about either of these two lots.
All right, thanks. Leah, do you have anything to add up front before I go around and check the commissioners, see if they have any questions or comments?
I just had the comment that, and I'm not picking on this particular application, but I think it would be a good habit to get into when we're dealing with riverfront, to have the applicants take us through their alternatives analysis, because I think it's an important exercise for the commission.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll go quickly around the commissioners, see if anyone else has any other questions, and then we can go through the alternatives analysis. Betsy, do you have any questions or comments on this?
No, but seconding what Leah said, it would be nice to see what the alternatives are.
Okay. Jonathan
No questions or comments.
and Patrick.
I wasn't present for the first half of this hearing, so I would probably recuse myself from this vote.
Okay. Appreciate that. And when it gets to that point, then I'll specifically ask if anyone wants to recuse themselves. So Norm, can you go through the alternatives analysis? I don't know, Jan, if you can bring that up.
Sure. On lot 179 first, lot 179 goes uphill from the street and then plateaus. So the first 80 feet or so go uphill, maybe 20 feet in elevation. And then it plateaus for the next 200 feet and then it drops down to the river way out back. So the way we've designed this was we have the driveway going up the side of the hill, not very steep. And then the septic system is right near the top of the hill with a house behind the septic system. And the reason we designed it that way was so that the house would have a nice flat yard in case they had children, the children could play in the backyard. So that puts a portion of the house in that 200-foot riverfront area, and the backyard is in that 200-foot riverfront area. So on the alternatives analysis, what I said was, what alternative would be to move the septic in the house closer to the street and build the house and the septic on the side of that hill, which would remove the house entirely from the riverfront area. But I would rather not do that because their yard, everything would be on the side of the hill. And I'd rather not have the family living on the side of the hill when they can be up on top on the nice flat portion of the hill. And I hope that the board would agree with my.
So I think from my perspective, that's nice of a thought of a flat level thing, but as far as the Conservation Commission and what we would consider, I would think if you had the house on the slope, you'd have a lot more disturbance, more cuts and fills, you'd have to have more trees removed and so forth. That would be a reason not to do it on the slope, not to mention erosion issues and other stabilization issues, as opposed to simply looking at a flat area for a yard. I think from the concerns and perspective of the Conservation Commission, it's more about the overall impact to the riverfront area. And if you slide the house down on the slope, you're going to have a lot of grading issues. And I think it'd be very difficult, even if you did slide it over there, to not have alterations in the 200-foot riverfront. Plus you have the potential where you would then have a lot of earthwork that could get close to the wetlands. So
I agree with what you just said. That's true. They'd be digging on the side of the hill. You wouldn't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
All right.
and then go ahead.
Then on 183, Leah, if you could switch the drawing to 183. We had done the soil testing, as you see on the plan. See those little rectangles on the plan? That's where I did the deep holes. And at the time I did that, I didn't believe I was in the riverfront area. So I've tested there, and the septic system has to be built where I tested. So on the alternative analysis, I said I could retest to the right of the house and move that septic system out of the riverfront area. The entire house is out of the riverfront area, but about 2/3 of the septic is in it. So I could retest. I'd rather not do that because, you know, when you bring a large excavator in there, you're knocking down trees and you're making a mess, which I've already done in the area where I tested. I mean, I try not to make a big mess, but a few trees came down. So I'd rather not have to retest. That would move setters back probably, you know, a month or two. So I was hoping the board would allow us. So the alternative analysis would be to retest with the septic system to the right of the house rather than to the left. And then that would take it completely out of the riverfront area.
So I'll go around the conservation commissioners and see if you have any questions on the alternatives analysis. So Betsy,
Not right now.
Jonathan,
Nope, nothing.
and Patrick. Well, Patrick, if you're recusing yourself, I won't ask you. So one of the things that typically when you look at alternatives analysis, you look at, and this is more just for education of everyone, you look at different things. The first one is no build, which is a simple one to say, yeah, that would, not impact the riverfront. However, that's not an option since there is a buildable lot here and there's nothing to do. I mean, there's nothing that prevents you from, constructing that single family home. Another alternative would be, as Norman was saying, on this particular one, you'd flip the house or you slide it around. But what you're trying to do is minimize and limit potential impacts to all of not just the riverfront, but also other resource areas and so forth. And then you also have just the regulatory requirements of Title V and how you do the septic and the setbacks from the septic. And then this one is on town water, correct?
No, it's a well.
It's a well. So then you also have a well on site and you have your regulatory requirements. So there's different ones and doing alternatives analysis. You're just trying to minimize as much as you can. One potential, thing on like this particular, on this particular site, what you could do is put in, I don't know, a 12-foot retaining wall in the back to minimize the sloping down towards, within the riverfront. But is that an economically viable thing to do? And just because you do that, as long as that slope is vegetated, it'll restore itself. So there's just different things that you typically do in a, in a alternatives analysis. And I don't know if Leah, if you have anything more to add to that.
No, you covered it.
Okay. All right. Having said that, is there anything else, Leah, that you're looking at for this particular, these two sites here?
No, I believe we've covered everything.
Great. So I will quickly go around the commission one more time to see if they see any type of like special condition or anything else you want to say, and then we'll open up to the public. So I'll start with Betsy. And you're muted. Yes, that is one of the new catchphrases for 2020 and 2021.
For the next of the millennium.
Yep.
No questions.
All right, Jonathan.
No questions, no comments.
Yeah, and I have no further questions on this. So I will open it up to the public. I don't know if Jan, how many people are on?
Somebody has their hand raised. Ken Holberger. There's 1, 2,
I'm
3,
going
4, 5. There's like nine people in the attendees.
Okay.
Yep, I'm going to promote Ken Holberger to talk.
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, this is Ken. I'm wondering if this property is enrolled in Chapter 61.
Yes, it is.
And so it's currently enrolled.
Yes.
Okay, and so at some point it will become, it will be leaving Chapter 61. And
Yes, and the town would have first option to buy it. Yes.
okay, so right now I'm speaking for the as a director of the Grafton Land Trust. And it's the land trust position that this is very valuable conservation property. And the land trust would, would propose to the town that right of first refusal be exercised when the time comes. And so that's what I have to say.
No, thanks, Ken. Obviously this parcel has been identified in the open space plan and a few others. At this point, we're going through the process for the conservation, and obviously, being chapter 61, it'll have to come out, it'll have to go through that process before anything can be done either on the site or any transfer of the property. But I
I
think,
understand. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. And Leah, that's one thing in our findings we should mention. It doesn't change our approval, but it just notes that, we should check before anything is, anything is started to make sure it's cleared the chapter 61 and making sure that is all done. All right, so as far as the public goes, does anyone else have any questions or comments at this time? All right. Seeing no one else raising their hands. I'll just give a
I'll make
couple of
a-
minutes. I was
Oh,
just going to
okay,
give
please.
them a minute or two because there are several folks listening in
Wow.
just to see if someone has a little issue finding the raise the hand. Other than that, no other further comments, and just that one note in the findings about the chapter 61. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to close the hearing and issue the orders and permits with all the standard conditions.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
I will do a roll call vote. Betsy,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes,
and Patrick has recused himself. I am also a yes, so the motion carries 3-4 and 1 recusal.
Thank you very much. Everyone
All
stay
right.
well. Stay
Thank
well.
you.
thanks, Norm. Be healthy.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Leah. So that was the first public hearing. We have a second one that's requested a continuance.
Correct.
All right. Let me go back to that. Okay, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and Grafton Conservation, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent for the construction of a distribution facility at 244 Worcester Street. The applicant has requested a continuance to, which is the date, I gotta find it,
February 1st.
to February 1st. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for 244 Worcester Street to the 1st of February 2022.
Well said. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
And we'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes,
Betsy,
Yes.
and Patrick.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. And it is continued to February 1. Okay, action items. Leah, what do we have? Is anyone else here for any of the other action items?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
I mean, there's 7 people on, so they're probably here for something. I just don't know what it is.
Right.
I'm
I
sure
would
we'll
just,
find out as we progress forward.
yeah, I guess before we get into doing kind of the administrative part of the hearing, if anyone is here to ask a specific question, either on the action item or something else, if you want to raise your hand, we're happy to invite you to be a panelist and just find out what you're doing at the meeting, and just so that you don't have to wait around until we happen to hit something that we're going to talk about. So there we go. We got one.
All right, I'm going to allow to talk.
All right, so it looks like Christopher Thornton. So please let us know what it is that you're interested in.
All right, so quick, I wanted to know, my question was, is the stormwater report the same as an environmental impact study?
Is this specifically on any particular project?
Well, this was, I mean, for the 244 Worcester Street. So I
Oh,
just want
okay.
to know when they do those documents, because I hear them referred, I'm in construction too, but I hear them referred to. Sometimes they're the same thing and sometimes they're separate. Or I could just be confused on them because I do hear these terms all the time. So I just want to know what the difference between the two, or is there one?
So I would maybe clear this up just a little bit. Now I'm talking generalities. We're not
Right.
in an open hearing and stuff. Typically, a stormwater report is confined to just the design of the stormwater, the size of the system, those type of things, the pre and post analysis, typically.
Right.
No question, when you have something called an environmental impact report from the MEPA perspective, that's Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, and the ENF and EIR, which is environmental notification form, an impact study means something very specific under the regulations. So typically an environmental impact report is different than a stormwater. Not to say you couldn't have an environmental impact report with a stormwater report included in it or as an attachment. They come in different packages, so to speak.
Right. Obviously, depending upon the need of what the project is.
Absolutely.
Some things will be combined into one report. I just wanted to know that, and for that particular project, is that the case?
Because we're not in a public hearing at the moment, we're not
Right.
going to discuss that specific one. What
Okay.
I would do, what my suggestion would be, is to call Leah at the office
Okay.
during the week, and she can take a look at the two, because what I don't want to have is any appearance that we're deliberating on a project that's not an open hearing.
Right.
So
Completely, totally understandable. I just want to know, for a document, even from like my own review.
yep, and that's fine. And the
Okay.
thing is the good news is all the documents, and correct me if I'm incorrect on this, Leah, all the documents are on our website, so you can access them all.
Okay.
So
Great.
that's the thing, and you can check with Leah as far as it. I don't remember off the top of my head. And again, I want to just
Okay.
be a little bit careful.
No, yeah, and I don't want to put anybody in the wrong position, because obviously we want things to go the proper way.
Correct.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thank you for raising your hand. I just hate to see people hang out if there isn't a specific reason for it. Or you can always listen, or if you're looking to become part of the Conservation Commission, there's many reasons why you may want to be listening in on us. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Need more construction people. Bring the construction people.
There we go. I got no issue with that. It's where I live, sort of on the design side, but yeah.
Well, you're in the periphery of the construction,
True. I get to walk on construction sites. So, all right, not seeing anything else. Let us just kind of continue with the action items. And if someone that's still on here wants to, have a comment or question, they can certainly raise their hand at any time. All right. 11 and 13 Potter Hill Road, looking for a certificate of compliance.
Yeah, this
Anything-
was a single family house. I've been by the site and I checked all their conditions. They've met everything. Construction's done. Grass is growing, so I recommend this one for issuance.
Sounds good. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 11 and 13 Potter Hill Road.
Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
I have a motion and second. I'll go around very quickly to see if
Hmm.
anyone has comments. Otherwise, we'll go right to a vote. Jonathan,
No comments.
Betsy,
No comments.
Patrick.
No comment.
Okay, motion in a second. So we'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Betsy,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Motion carries. Next is request for certificate of compliances at 244 Worcester Street.
So these are 4 old files
Okay.
for Wyman Gordon. We have various projects from years ago They include a beaver fence they were installing at a culvert, some remediation on the eastern side of the property, 2 beaver pipes and beaver deceiver devices that were installed, and also some work in Bonnie Brook. I've been through the files for these 4. They met all the conditions. We have a stamped letter from an engineer about the work being completed satisfactorily. So I recommend these 4 for certificates of compliance. They do have 2 other old files that are going to remain open because they haven't finished that work yet, but these 4 are all set.
Right. And so just for clarification, these 4 old outstanding order of conditions are at the same location at 244 regarding the distribution facility, but it's not related to the distribution facility. It's related to the property and old ones. And when you say old, what year? I remember a couple of these on the remediation that they were doing, which was dealt with some contaminants on the site, but just for people's knowledge.
I'm not sure the year off the top of my head, but just for a point of reference, we're in the thousands now for DEP numbers, and these are mostly in the 700s.
Right. No,
So-
and yeah, I remember a couple of these projects, and they were definitely not associated with the proposed facility. So
They are also on the periphery of the Wyman Gordon property.
Yep.
The parcel they are subdividing off to put the distribution facility on is down in the front. None of these are on that same piece they're going to be carving off. These are
okay.
in the back and on the sides.
All right. Thanks for the update. I'll go quick around. Does anyone have any questions on this? Jonathan,
No questions, no comments.
Betsy,
No questions.
Patrick?
No, no question.
Okay. Yeah, and that you answered mine. So do we have a motion for these outstanding order of conditions at 244 Worcester Street?
I'll make a motion to issue the certificates of compliance for the beaver fence at the culvert, the east remediation, the 2 beaver pipes, and the Bonnie Brook close up at 244 Worcester Street.
Do I have a second?
Second said motion.
Do a roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Betsy,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Okay, meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or recommendations on the last meeting minutes? So I'll do quick. Jonathan,
My only comment is that I really liked that everyone had good holiday spirit.
I appreciate that. I also appreciate the fact that our staff gets our meeting minutes done every single time before the next meeting.
I do
Trust me, when
appreciate
I
that as
first-
well.
When I first joined, we were back years. And so I really appreciate the fact that you guys are on top of this. Yeah, we spent my first few months catching up on old minutes. So thank you very much, you guys. That's just being professional. So thank you. Betsy, any kind of questions or comments on it?
No, I was absent, so do I still vote on the minutes?
You can still vote because you can still read it. And if you had a question
Okay.
on something,
All right.
yeah. And Patrick,
No, no questions.
do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the December 21st, 2021 meeting minutes.
Second,
Second the motion.
roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Betsy,
Yes.
and Patrick.
Yes.
I am also a yes. Meeting minutes are approved. Anything else, Leah, that you have for us?
Yeah, if you guys can bear with me, I have a handful of other things to take you through. One is just an FYI, the town hall is closed as of tomorrow to the public for about 2 weeks. Staff's going to be fully remote, possibly looking at coming back on the 18th, but we might be reevaluating depending on the number of cases.
Gotcha.
So you can still reach us. We have our laptops at home. Email's the best. You can call. calls don't ring to us at home, but we get the voicemail to our email, and then we can return phone calls. The second one is we're going to be publishing a new meeting schedule with filing deadlines associated with it on our webpage. We went back and forth in the past advertising filing deadlines and then not advertising filing deadlines. One way doesn't necessarily seem to work better than the other, but the thing we want to do this time around is not only include the deadline for if you have a new project that's going to need a public hearing, but we also want to let folks know of the commission's policy of wanting materials for continuations a week out from the meeting. You guys set that policy a few years ago now, and we're having a lot of trouble with folks getting us things oftentimes the day of a meeting, and it's a lot of chaos and running around at the last minute trying to get everything ready for the meeting. So we're going to be putting that new schedule on the webpage. If you guys have any questions about that, feel free to chime in now.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I mean, that's a typical in, you know, being on the design side, the first thing I always look for is what those submission dates are to make sure that everything is met. So I think that's totally appropriate. Anyone else?
Okay.
Anyone else have any other comments on this? Sounds good.
Okay. Something we have been talking about on and off, the Lake Quinsigamon Commission and their aquatic invasive management program, and what the town of Grafton could contribute to that effort. We do have the smallest area of the lake in town, but we have the most dense aquatic invasives. The other, at least one other of the three towns kicks in some funds, so we were looking to do so as well. I did talk with accounting, and the accountant feels that it can come out of our fees that we collect under the bylaw. Now that would be a different account than the one we're already using a little bit of for part of my salary. So the two wouldn't be in conflict with each other if we were to want to take a contribution from the bylaw fees. So I wanted to talk to you guys about if that's something, if that's a mechanism you're comfortable using. It would be an annual contribution, I believe, from speaking with Betsy. We didn't land on a hard number yet, roughly looking at maybe 5,000 to 10,000. So we need to determine if this is how we want to do it, what the amount is, and just for point of reference, that account currently has 95,000 in it.
Right, and I know that we have looked at this in the past because because it's based on the fees. It's based on what's being done for projects in Grafton. So I know at one point, and this was a while ago, Leah, that we looked at it because a certain, like you said, a certain percentage of your salary is in it. We always want to make sure that we don't see any trends that are, you know, either that's basically reducing and we run into an issue with not having that a decent pot of
Cushion.
money to make sure we don't run it out of it, because it is purely you know, money from, you know, the fees. So it's, you know, if all of a sudden there's no more projects, then that would impact that.
Right, so this would be a different account than the one that my salary draws from.
Okay.
My salary draws from, or part of my salary is drawn from the DEP fees, the fees that folks pay on the state side.
Okay.
Well, under the state regulations, but the town portion of them. The account I was looking at to possibly do this contribution for aquatic invasives is our wetland bylaw fees.
Okay.
So that it would be two different pots of money, so they wouldn't be in competition with each other.
Okay. And again, I'm just more just trying to be thoughtful about, you know, our responsibility, you know, within these funds, and to make sure they're being used according to either the state law, or in this case here, it would be under our local regulations and bylaw. So, and if that's something, I mean, obviously, you know, it's well within what we should be doing, as it would be to fight invasives in the Quinsigamon Lake and River. So,
I mean, previously I wasn't under the impression that this was an option in the past. But we've had a lot of staff turnover in the town hall. So I was having the conversation with our new accountant. She felt like it's like a proactive approach to the regulations where, you know, we're trying to protect wetlands, and it's a proactive thing to
Right.
do so. I can check with, I don't know if town council would chime in on it, if that makes you guys more comfortable.
Actually, that would make me feel a little more comfortable, just to make sure. I mean, I think, and I'll go around with everyone. I certainly don't have a problem, and maybe what we can do is start out at 5,000 and then see what happens with the fees and so forth, just in case there's a change. I know, Betsy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I was exactly going to recommend 5,000. And I think that, you know, Peter would be over the moon, the fact that we proactively did this. But the invasives are not going away. So, I mean, this is something that I feel, you know, the one thing from listening to those meetings, how critical the weed and invasive management is. I think it would be great that we could do that, but I don't think we need to be doing 30,000 like Shrewsbury, and I think 10,000 is an awful lot. So I think 5,000 is a nice number. It shows that we're serious and we're committed, and it's not going to break the bank, it seems.
Great. Jonathan
Echo everything that Betsy just said.
and Patrick.
Is this something that we would review on an annual basis to decide if we were going to renew it?
I think that's a great question. I think the answer is we should set it up so it is going to be annually, but we should have some sort of mechanism that we review it, just to make sure that we get some sort of report from the committee to see what they're using the money for. That's all.
Agreed.
Yeah, because I agree, it's very important, and it's treating it in our case, sort of at the source before it's flowing downstream to us to some degree. I think it's just important to review that the money is being spent on something that's having results.
Yeah, and just to make sure that's what the money is being spent for, and that we get some sort of report to understand that what's being done for. So I think that's a great question. And Leah, that's something easy we could do.
Yeah, just for clarification, it sounds like we're all agreed on 5, at least for this year. Pending town council saying that that's kosher, can I go ahead and pursue this, or do you want it to come back to a meeting again?
I see no reason to come back to a meeting. Just let us know when it does happen, unless anyone else has any reason to have it come back to us. Not seeing anyone. Okay.
Oh, I agree.
Okay.
And,
Do you-
you know, when it is a done deal, I'd like to be able to reach out to Peter. And let
Yeah,
him-
I'll be in contact with you, Betsy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you on that. Is there anything else dealing with
Yeah, I
that? or
have, oh, not on that. I have 2
Okay.
other things.
Go for it.
Okay, one is, Jan, can you pull up GIS and go to Clearview Street? Doesn't matter which lot, but basically the subdivision as a whole. So for context for the commission, we had the subdivision called Grafton Hill that's being constructed. The road they're constructing is Clearview Street. We issued them permits in October of 2016 So they expired in October of 2019, which was prior to any COVID tolling of expiration dates. I've been in touch with the developer of the subdivision several times because they are still actively constructing now with expired permits, and they just give me vague statements that, oh yeah, we'll refile, and we hired someone and they're going to refile with you next week, and it doesn't happen. And we've been around the same circle a few times. So I wanted to bring it to you guys if you wanted a formal enforcement order to go out, if you wanted it to say cease and desist till you have new permits. I wanted to get your take on where we go from here. They did build, if you can turn on the satellite, I don't know how recent it's going to show, but the roadways in, a decent amount of the houses are in, but not all, and not the one that, if anyone remembers, there were 2 lots that they combined into 1 lot in order to get the required upland. And that one has its own order, which is also expired and has not been constructed yet.
Okay, so what kind of documentation have you given them as far as letters or whatever, or?
So it's all been email correspondence thus far.
I would suggest that we send a certified letter just to inform them that we have not gotten any response, and that they need to, within 30 days, submit applications to either do a new notice of intent or ask for an extension, or actually, and then, and just put it pretty clearly that, if nothing happens within 30 days, we'll do a cease and desist and an enforcement order.
Okay.
To me, it's more about having all the paperwork
Yep.
and having a paper trail. Does anyone else have any comments on that, Betsy?
No, I was just going to ask you to explain a little bit because this predates me. What we're asking them to cease and desist?
So basically they came in front of us, we gave an order of conditions and they started work. And so now that they're, and it happens a lot, their order of conditions is only good for 3 years.
Okay.
So their order of conditions expired. And so Leah's been trying to get them, hey, you have to get an extension.
Just if I can cut in right there, they can't
Yep.
extend once it's expired. They have to refile.
Right. So they have to refile. And it's basically following the law and following the regulations. So, and they haven't done anything. And so what we're trying to do is get them back into compliance with the regulations, which is what our job is. So.
Got
Does
it.
that help?
Yes, it does, ma'am.
Okay. Jonathan, any other kind of comments or questions?
No, what you just laid out, Sandy, sounds like a reasonable process to validate, let them know, give them an opportunity to file and do the right thing. And if they don't, then we can obviously pursue the cease and desist and
Yep,
go the more difficult way.
correct.
So sounds good to me.
All right, Patrick.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right, great. And then Leah, the only other thing I would say is to give town council the heads up that you're doing this. I don't think we need any advice from them or anything. It's just more of like, based on what they have not done yet, the next thing would be doing an enforcement order and making sure that they're aware of that process. That's all.
Okay. And the last thing I have, we have to be a little cautious of how we proceed because we are not in the open hearing for this anymore. But 29 Pullard was on our last meeting. We closed the hearing. Pending a revised plan that was going to shift the project out, or not the project in its entirety, but the house was going to shift out of the inner riparian zone to the outer. We received that revised plan and it did shift it out of the inner riverfront. However, it then increased the total riverfront because the explanation that the applicant gave was that it created kind of a domino effect. In order to move the house, they then had to rotate the parking area to still comply with zoning's side lot setback. So it resulted in, I think it was about 300 additional square feet of riverfront impacts. And Sandy, I had sent that to you.
Yeah, I did look
Kind
at
of
it.
looking for advice.
Yeah, so I looked at it and I didn't go back and look at the previous plan. And I get, we have to be careful about that. We're not deliberating. We're just, you know, looking at information and discussing the information, submit it. And one of the things I was trying to look for, because we asked them to do certain things. And I was wondering if any of so it's 300 square feet more of alteration, correct?
Correct.
Is any of that the request that we did because we wanted to put in that swale on the edge?
No. No, it was all the explanation. I talked to the engineer a lot about this at the counter. And
Yep.
what he showed me was that the rotation of the parking lot resulted in needing a little bit more driveway to meet up with that rotated parking lot. So that was a little bit of the 300. And the rest of the 300 was because the building footprint itself slid to the south a little bit. So the limit of work out back is the majority of the 300 square feet.
Okay. And that, in what basically what they presented to you is that the reason that it changed and basically went up a little bit was just to get it to work. And
to balance between our request to come out of the inner riverfront with meeting zoning requirements. This is what they came up with. But I wasn't comfortable approving 300 additional square feet of impact on the staff level.
right, without at least at a minimum talking to us.
Yeah.
And then the question would be, we gave them direction and then, you know, and that direction has resulted in this. And does that meet the intent of what we did in the order of condition is what you're looking for clarification, correct?
I'm looking to see, we need to know if this revision is acceptable and we're issuing an order based on this is your approved plan now, or do we just need to issue an order without them coming out of the inner riverfront area and go back to the plan that you guys voted on that night? And just as a bigger side comment, we should try to avoid any votes with contingencies built into them, because they always seem straightforward when we're taking the vote at the time, and applicants find all these ways to make it very complicated on the staff level. And when we're not in a public hearing anymore, it leaves us in this weird limbo, and you know, we're not the ones voting on it.
Right. It comes down to intent and you know, making sure that the intent is met, but also you know, going beyond what you should go beyond.
Correct.
That's the tough part. Yeah.
So we have about another week on the 21-day clock on this one. We have not given an order of conditions because I didn't know which plan to say was approved.
Right. Because the one that we looked at during the hearing was fairly straightforward. And the discussion was, if you just slid it out of the inner riparian, then we would be good. The only problem is that when they slid it out, it increased the impacts in the back. And so when you talk about bigger picture, and these, again, this is just numbers. What was the overall alteration in the riverfront?
Give me a second, I can find that
Yeah.
number. And just for further clarification, we had asked that question because DEP had chimed in, pointing out that the previous order on this property had far less impacts. So we had nudged the applicant a little bit to say, how can you reduce this footprint? So I was thinking, and I think the commission was thinking, that it was just going to be numbers coming out of the inner and into the outer, but the net would be the same.
Right.
I-
And that's
we
because
didn't-
we were giving, not looking at an actual plan. We were just saying, okay, just slide this here and we'll be all set.
Yeah. Let's see. So on their most recent NOI, which I believe does not account for the 300 additional, they were at 9,600 total square feet of riverfront alteration. And then let me just pull up the email I have with the engineer, but I believe that's not reflective of the 300 just yet. Yeah, with the revision, they're at 9,970.
Right. And they're going by the 10% rule for this particular project. So,
Yes, which they would still be under.
right. So kind of just getting some feedback from other folks. And again, we're not trying not to deliberate, but it's more of a procedural question, whether, you know, we should request they come back. And at this point, it becomes a little bit dicey. So Jonathan, any kind of comments or questions or about the process that we're going through?
No, I agree with what Leah said earlier, that we should probably look to define better if there's, we don't want to have contingencies that, again, fall on, you know, staff to figure out. So I'm agreeing there. But I don't have any other comments besides that.
Okay. Betsy? So Betsy, do you have any other kind of questions or comments on this?
No, I'm sorry. Spacing out. None.
That's Patrick?
No, just, but it does make sense on the contingency thing that,
Yeah, I mean, it's a lesson learned, but the reality is we haven't, you know, we had a public hearing closed. We now have given some conditions. The applicant has responded to that condition and done what, you know, take it that for what it is, and there is no intent other than just to get a site plan to work. And it ends up resulting in 300 additional square feet of alteration. Is that acceptable to us? And then the second part of that question is, if it's not acceptable to us, what are our options? And at this point, we're in the 21-day, we've closed the hearing. The options are basically to deny it and make them come back to us, which I don't think is totally fair because we created this circumstance, or to go ahead and approve it. And then after we approve it, to say, you know, we got to go through this one more time to understand where the 300 feet is, but we're outside of that public hearing process. And we're still dealing with that one condition we had them respond to. And what we're saying is we don't agree with that response. So that condition can stand, Leah, and we can still issue it because we have closed the hearing. And what we can do is just tell them that, you know, the intent of that condition was not to change or increase the alterations. So but in the bad part, it falls on staff as opposed to be in front of the commission. So we can still approve it and still have that condition. And then we just can say, well, the condition didn't meet the intent, and we can talk to the applicant, and maybe it's as simple as them coming in front of us, not in a public hearing, but in a, you know, not in reopening the hearing, but in a public setting to explain what's going on. And to be honest, I didn't have time, but I was going to like overlay the 2 PDFs to see what was actually changed.
Okay, so
And again, I'm just trying to talk through this as far as the
Yeah.
legalities of it.
right,
What
So
was
we
the
would approve the one
contingency
that we saw with the condition. So the one
Well-
we saw at the hearing would be what would be referenced. The
Okay.
condition would stand alone.
yeah,
The updated plan is in response to that condition. And then we would, you know, talk to them that, you know, we're a little uncomfortable because of the extra 300 square feet. And we understand that you're responding to this condition. It's just sorting out that that condition is met based on what the intention was.
okay. Jonathan, did you want to say something before I respond?
Sure. I guess my only question, I'm don't remember this specific at this right now. I don't remember what the specific hearing was or whatever. What was the contingency? Can we talk about that, or is that diving too close to discussing it? Because I don't remember what the contingency was that we voted on 2,
So
3 weeks, whatever it was.
it was a condition that requested them to shift because it's what we said, and Leah, correct me if I don't have the wording exactly correct. It was to shift the building out of the inner riparian. So it was about
Correct.
improving the inner riparian.
Hmm.
And so they did that, and that was a response to that condition. The only problem is it resulted in, you know, an additional 300 square feet of alteration. So,
Okay, maybe we can caveat something. I don't,
so
if you
They
you
have
put a
had to
contingency in. Sorry, go ahead, Bessie.
No, I was just gonna, cause I'm trying to sort this out on it. If they knew that it was gonna result in that 300 feet of alterations, would it have been incumbent upon them to come back to us and say, hey, because you're asking us to do this, this is gonna happen? Or is
Well,
that on us?
so the way I would look at it is when we set conditions, the applicant has to respond to it, right? So the
Right.
applicant has responded to it. And then the question for us is, and what Lee is looking for help for, is that they've then issued this other plan that responded to our condition, but there's another resultant of it. So the question is for us, does that meet the condition we did? So it's up to us to say, yes, it did. You moved it out of the inner riparian, and that's what our concern was. And oh, by the way, the additional 300 feet is fine. Or you know what? Oh, we wanted it to be moved out of the inner riparian with no additional. It depends upon how that based on the hearing, how that condition was written.
And does that then set a precedent for other people to come back?
Nope.
Okay,
Yeah, this is this is the one thing that, you know, when we do a special condition, it's because it's a unique circumstance
okay,
to this project. So we can't create policy through issuing conditions. However, we have to be careful that we don't do that. And in this case here, it's pretty straightforward.
okay,
This is a pretty unique circumstances.
okay.
So,
Learning slowly, Sandy.
No, and let me tell you, as I talk this out, I'm trying to not talk about what we did and what we decided, but talk about the process and how
Right.
we administer what we
Yeah.
approved. So that's why, you know, that's what I'm trying to talk through.
Gotcha.
so it sounds like the best way forward is we go ahead and issue them their order and their bylaw permit with the plan that you guys saw. And the condition will be prior to commencement of work, you'll come back before the commission to discuss the potential revision to slide the building footprint out of the inner riparian.
Right, yes, to have that, what we talked about is, this is what we're looking for. We just have to review it. Yes, yep.
Okay,
And then it's within what we discussed during deliberations at a public hearing. And the only thing we're talking about now is process. We're not talking about changing anything. We're simply talking about the process, and to be specific about what is referenced in the order, which is what was submitted in front of the commission during that public hearing. Because we're not
Okay.
taking any new information in. So I'm looking at it purely from a procedural perspective and saying that what we decided is what we decided. Yes, it created, this unintended consequence, but we have to address that based on what we decided 2 weeks ago, or whenever the hell the last meeting was.
okay.
So that stands.
The only question I have further is, and I don't know if you guys can discuss or answer this, but that kind of puts the potential revised plan in the position of like, sort of akin to a minor change when we review those.
Right.
So is that the goal? Is that the kind of process we kind of want to send this on the road towards? And the reason I ask is the alternative is to reopen the hearing.
Right. So, and that can only be done at the pleasure of the applicant. Okay. We cannot reopen a hearing. We do not control that part of the process. It's
Yeah.
only the applicant. So, from my perspective, it is a condition we wrote, and it's a condition that we have to review. And if we don't feel the condition is met, then we need to communicate that. Or it could be staff looking at this and saying, hey, you responded to our condition, you have this, I need to get the commission's input on this. And that can be done at a public hearing. It doesn't have to be, can be done at our meeting in a public setting, and it'd be almost like a minor change, but we're just discussing all we're doing is discussing the response they had to the condition, and then we can openly speak about it, where we don't want to get into actually the details of what that change is at this point. It's more about
Okay.
talking the process. So.
All right, I think I'm clear on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I understand how we created that, because we all thought it was, like you said, an easy little, just slide it over, we're good, and we don't need to have them come back. But I think there's a number of ways in the future to handle that, is if we're going to do that, the condition needs to be written in a certain way. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of my suggestion. Issue it based on the plan that was in front of us during the public hearing, and the plan that came in afterwards is in response to one of those conditions. It's two separate things.
Thank you for your help on that.
No, it's a bit of a learning process, and trying to follow what my understanding is of the public hearing process and what we can and cannot talk about,
Right.
and making sure we don't deviate from that. So.
All right. That's the list of what I had for you guys.
Fabulous. I'm officially on PTO and flying
Nice.
out to Florida tomorrow. So
Are you really?
Nice.
yes,
Where?
going to Fort Myers,
Oh,
Gulf Coast.
love the Gulf Coast.
Yep. So it'll be nice. Just going down to visit my sister, but she happens to live in Fort Myers, so it's a good excuse.
Just double mask.
Yeah, I actually have been picking out my masks that I'm going to wear.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be a little bit, I've got my rapid tests, I got all that kind of stuff. And yeah, definitely going to be cautious as much as I can. So, and I've been working remotely, so you know, it is what it is at this point. So, but I will be abundantly cautious in what I do. So,
Please do. We need you.
but yeah, so that's it. Anything else, Leah, that we need to chat about?
Nope, that'll do it. Thank you.
Okay. I guess we have one more motion.
Make a motion to close the meeting.
Second,
I second that motion.
we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Betsy.
Yes.
I am also a yes. So we are done.